Hello and welcome to the Music Baby podcast. This is a new podcast from and for DIY musicians, independent musicians, unsigned musicians or bands, generally anyone who's an artist, ideally in the music industry, but kind of applies to other industries as well, who hasn't made it yet. Someone who's still doing their thing, someone who's still doing their art or their craft, but they just haven't been discovered yet. Things haven't taken off yet, but you're still trying your best. And maybe you're struggling, because I think we all are at one point or another. And that's what this podcast is for. The struggling artists, basically, in the music industry. My name is Delphine, and I myself am a music baby, a DIY musician, someone who's really devoted to their craft and really wants to be an artist in the music world, but things just haven't taken off yet. But that's not a bad thing, because it means we can come together and we can talk about our struggles, we can help each other. That's also what this is for. I want to give you advice of things that I have learned. I want to get guests on and have them tell you the advice that they have learned on their path as a musician. And we can all talk about it, and we can all learn from each other's mistakes and just generally have a good time together. So if this is something that you might be into, then please stick around. There will be a lot of episodes in the future. I've already got some guests lined up that I'm really excited to show you, and lots of interesting themes. But today we're going to talk about something that I noticed in the past few months, and then conveniently there was a new trend of the in and out lists reappearing. The in and out lists were a big thing when I was a teenager, because every month you would get like, oh, in for March, out for March, like all the things that are trendy right now and all the things that aren't trendy. And sometimes it was just for fun. It was just like in, being adventurous, or out, being a liar. So it was just really general every now and then. But I also noticed that this year I have seen a few in and out lists, and it made me really nostalgic, because it made me think of my teenage years and when I used to really read those lists and also get a lot of inspiration from those lists. And I thought it would be a great time to do a music in and out list for 2024, or at least what I think looks like could be in and out for 2024. I'm by no means a specialist or a professional when it comes to music trends or trends in general. I am just way too slow at recognizing that something is a trend. And then by the time I've recognized it, it's already long gone and the next trend has come around. So don't take my word for any of these. Don't take it too seriously. This is just for fun. These are just things I've noticed that are becoming more and more popular. Things that I see more and more, or things that I wish to see more and more. And I think maybe other people do too. So that's what this is about. Some of them are very much music related. Some of them can be applied to other art forms as well, or just general life in our society and culture. So yeah, I think there's something for everybody if you're kind of interested to see what's going on in the music industry, or how do other people feel about the current trends, and maybe you just feel the same way and you want to hear someone else say it, or maybe you just feel completely different about it and want to hear someone say something that you can discuss things with. That's also something I really love, starting a discussion. Not fights, not drama, not tea, just a nice discussion. If you have another opinion on any of the topics mentioned in this podcast, I very friendlyly invite you to join the discussion, voice your opinion in a respectful manner, because that's how we do it here, because we are just music babies, okay? We are just a girl trying to get by in the music world, which can be rough sometimes. So we don't have to play into the roughness. It's already rough enough, okay? So let's be friendly with each other. Okay, Okay, let's get started with the list. I just wrote down some things that I've noticed over the last few months or over the last few days even. And the first thing I want to talk about, and probably the most important thing and the most common thing that I've seen, is weird and experimental music / films / books. So this spans over a lot of art forms, and it's a trend that I really, really appreciate. Is something that I'm currently enjoying in books and film, like I said, but I also love to see it more in music, because it just means people are putting themselves out there. They are not trying to hold back or try to fit into the pop style, whatever that may be at the time. People are really just going for what they want to go for. And I think it really shows, because music's becoming more weird. I've noticed a lot of artists who are quite big make kind of weird music now. And it's really great, because there's only so much music you can make following the same pattern or the same formula. At some point, you're going to have to branch out. You're going to have to do something weird. You're going to have to try something out and experiment a little bit, because it would be boring otherwise. I want to name a couple of examples outside of music, so just to show you kind of what I mean. I've recently seen the film Poor Things, starring Emma Stone and Mark Ruffalo and Willem Dafoe. That is a weird film. It's weird and it's beautiful, and they took some risks, and it's an art. It's a very artful film that is still easily digestible and easy to understand. And it's quite long-ish. It's like 2.5 hours long, but you never feel like it's getting boring or it's getting slow. You're always really in the film. And it's just a small proof for me that things are getting weirder and people are trying stuff out. Like if you look at the set design and the costumes and the acting and the choices, like some of the film is in black and white and some of it is in color, I think is a bold choice and is a little bit of experimenting when it comes to filmmaking. And I think we're really moving away from these safe sort of films that were popular in the 2010s, like the chick flicks and the romantic comedies, and just like safe films, like you put it out, people will love it, slap some famous faces on there and you're good. But I really think, and this is from someone who really doesn't know anything about film, okay, so I think I have to say that I didn't study film. I know nothing about it. This is just something I noticed. I feel like the big films, the big ones that come into the cinema, are getting a little bit more experimental, and I really appreciate that. I know that there's smaller filmmakers, independent filmmakers, who already took those risks, like ages and ages ago, probably. Like, this is not a new thing at all. It's just something I've noticed be more popular, especially in the cinema. And it's just something that I've noticed over other art forms as well. So I did want to mention it here. So another example where I've noticed this is the world of literature. There are some books that I've noticed become more popular, and especially like with social media and stuff, Book Talk, Bookstagram, pushing different books every now and then. There are books that I saw on social media that I picked up myself where I thought, oh, this would probably be like an easy read because it's recommended by social media, by Bookstagram. And I was completely wrong. It was a weird book with interesting themes, with really weird plot developments and twists, where I would finish the book and sit there and be like, what did I just read? But I'm really here for it. I love these books because you have to really think about it for a while. Maybe you never figure out what it meant. Maybe it keeps going in your head and you're like trying to figure out why this super weird thing happened and you just never figure it out. But that's what I think is really interesting about art. It makes you think. It makes you think about it for a long time. It makes you try and like put the pieces of the puzzle together and figure out what the meaning of everything is. And you might not even get it. Sometimes that can be frustrating, like with Kafka on the Shore. I tried to connect those dots for months. I wrote a paper on it, trying to figure out what the connection between different events in the book is, and I just couldn't figure it out, and it was so frustrating. But to even make that effort, trying to figure it out, researching the topic, researching the country it comes from, the book, and the laws of literature they have there, it's just so nice about art. I've learned something about Japanese fiction and how the classical writers approach writing fiction, and how the rules of the genre are being used in the book. And I know so much more just for having read a weird book. So an example I want to give is actually an author rather than a book. Her name is Sayaka Murata, and she's currently my favorite author. She wrote, I think she has 3 books released in English-speaking countries, or I have access to 3 books. One is called Earthlings, I think might be my favorite. And it's a weird book, weird ending, everything weird. But it's so good. It's so interesting. I wrote a whole song about it because there was so much there to work with. It was so inspirational, and it was just a good read. Then you might know this one, Convenience Store Woman, was also recommended by the Bookstagrammers, the Book Talkers, and also really good read. A little bit weird, not as weird as Earthlings, I would say, but still really good read. And the third one is Life Ceremony, which is a collection of short stories, which is maybe the weirdest one because each short story has like a weird setup. It's like set in a world where the laws are different, or like the society is different. So each time you get into a new story, you like have a completely new universe that you have to like get into at first. And then within that weird universe, you also have weird interactions, weird people. And it's really interesting is all I can say. Please pick up any of them. You'll be happy for doing so. So now that you have a little bit of context in terms of the other art forms that are doing this, I want to get to music. And here it's a little bit difficult. I can really only name the examples that I personally listen to. But I think overall, I can notice and acknowledge that other artists that I don't normally listen to have experimented a little bit more as well. So one that I really enjoy is Kimbra. Yes, the one who did Somebody That I Used to Know with Gautier. And she is really experimental in her approach to songwriting and her approach to performance, because she only sings. She doesn't play an instrument, but she uses her voice as an instrument, which makes her experiment with the sound of it, with the way she sings, the effects that she puts on, the way she performs it even. And it's something that really inspires me and that makes me feel like, because I feel like she's considered pop or alternative pop, maybe. But it makes me think you can be a pop musician, you can be an alternative pop musician and still really try and break the boundaries of whatever that means. Someone who is obviously very experimental, very alternative, but still kind of considered pop, alternative pop, and gained popularity again in the last couple of years because she was featured on a very popular TV show, Kate Bush. Kate Bush is probably my main influence when it comes to my own songwriting, so obviously I'm going to be very partial. I can't be impartial when it comes to music because I'm going to have influences and they are going to influence my decision or like my opinion on how I feel about pop music, how I feel about the developments of music. So this is not an objective opinion. I can't be objective. I think even if I tried, I couldn't. So to me, the fact that Kate Bush gained popularity again with this new generation is proof that people are ready for some weirdness. I genuinely think that the world is ready to be a little bit weird again, you know? A lot of us already were in the first place. This is not new for a lot of us, but I feel like it's becoming more and more common to experiment, to be a little bit weird. And yeah, I think Kate Bush, obviously, it's not new. She doesn't make new music as far as I know. But the music she did make that was kind of weird and out of the norm resurfaced and gained more popularity now, even though the song that was featured on the show wasn't even that weird. But I feel like the other songs gained more popularity because of it. Then another thing I noticed, which is only like a small piece to my argument, is musicians taking small risks in certain songs. So they won't do a whole song being super weird. It will be a small weird moment in that song to just show we can be wild, we can be weird, we can do something that's not common. And the example I have for this is the song Your Mum by Wet Leg. The song itself is super indie rock, easy, kind of fits the rules of the genre. But there's a section in there where the singer just screams for a good amount of time. It's a long scream. It's an ugly scream. It's not supposed to be pretty. It's supposed to be powerful. And I think if you listen to it the first time, you're a little bit taken aback at first. You're like, oh, good Lord, what's happening here? Why is she screaming? But it's a tiny risk they took, a tiny little experimental idea they put in there, and it made the song so memorable. I always know which one it is. It's Your Mum. I always know that's the one where she screams. And I think it's such an effective little tool to take small, tiny risks and just put something in there that's a little crazy, and it will make your song more memorable. I think people are starting to realize that music doesn't necessarily have to be beautiful. It can be ugly. If you're writing a song about an ugly topic or an ugly feeling, it can also sound that way, and it will bring the feeling across even better, maybe. I noticed that in my own songwriting, to give one example, and I did this before I noticed that things are getting weirder. This was for a project where I wrote songs about books, and this particular book was The House Guest by Amparo Davila. And it was a short story about a very creepy creature that comes into the house and lives there with a family. It's never specified what it is. You kind of imagine like a dog-like figure, but it's not specified what the monster or the creature is. It's just called The House Guest. And in the song, I recorded horrible screams. I did scream takes at home. I had to tell my neighbors, please don't call the police. This is absolutely normal for me. I have to record some scream takes. And I went absolutely insane. And it was ugly. It was not pretty. It's not a beautiful take. It's not a beautiful element in that song. It's supposed to be ugly. And I think it really added to the feeling of the song. It made it special. It made it a little experimental. And I was really happy with the result because I felt like I actually tried something that was out of my comfort zone, out of my range. Because I'm a classically trained singer. Like, I'm supposed to sing beautifully. And I did the complete opposite. And it was so fun. And I think that's why this song specifically is one of my favorites of mine, because I took that risk. My sister also sent me a song called Hi Ren by Ren, and she also noticed that things are getting a little bit weirder and people are experimenting. People aren't necessarily singing beautifully or rapping beautifully. They are just relying on emotion and feeling more rather than structure and norms, which is good. Is really good. Obviously, a lot of people still do that, which is also fine. Songwriting is entirely subjective and song production is subjective. Whatever you do, if it feels right to you, then you're doing it right. There's no rules to this. It's just something I've noticed and that I just wanted to know if other people notice as well. So this is something I really wanted to have a discussion on. Do you have any examples where you feel things got a little bit weirder recently? Do you have an artist maybe who used to be really tame and chill and now they've turned into like a experimental weirdo? And how do you feel about it as well? What do you prefer? Because the thing with experimental music is I don't think you can relax to it very well. Obviously, it depends on the genre, but it's not really meant to be easily digestible. It's supposed to be a little more difficult to understand, but that's also kind of what art is about to not be easily understandable. It's really difficult making statements about art because it's subjective. Like, one thing can be true, but the complete opposite can be true as well. And then something in the middle of those two extremes can be true as well. It's just entirely subjective. It's just something I noticed. This is not the truth. It's just my opinion and my observations, and I want to hear from you. So the next trend I've noticed is something that is maybe a little bit more objectively true, at least for now. I've noticed that pop music is shifting towards dance pop, which I think is interesting because whatever is pop music is not necessarily a genre. It's a state of whatever is popular, hence pop music or popular music. Sometimes it can be defined as a genre. I would say that Taylor Swift is pop, but also with country influences. So I just don't, I find it really hard to pinpoint an artist who is pure pop, just pop music. Because some musicians are pop music and they're one genre, and then other musicians are pop music and they're different. So it's really hard to pinpoint. You can correct me on this as well, but I just feel like pop music changes its genre depending on what's popular at the time. And I think at the moment we're witnessing a shift towards dance music, dance pop. And it's been happening for a while. I think there was a time in the 2010s, 2013s era where like dance tunes, like club tunes were very popular as well and part of pop music. But the song that I'm talking about that makes me think this is Yes and by Ariana Grande, which came out very recently. And I listened to it and I thought that is so different from what she used to make. Like the music she used to make was still upbeat, still danceable, like Break Free, for example, I think is maybe the most dancey one. But I don't know. I think this new song is very different from what she usually makes. And it makes me think that this is the direction that pop music is going in at the moment. Another band, for example, who kind of fits into that theme is Jungle. They gained so much popularity in the last couple of years. And they are very much... Are they dance pop? I think they're like indie dance pop vibes. And they are becoming so popular at the moment. They are headlining all the festivals and playing all the gigs in all the arenas. They're going on tour and stuff. And even like 3-4 years ago, they were nowhere near that level of popularity. They kind of like exploded in the last few years. And I'm super happy for them, obviously. But it just shows me that like that type of music is gaining a lot of traction at the moment. And I think it's interesting. It's just interesting to follow the trends and see what's happening and what's popular right now. If you think about the 90s, what was considered pop music then was way more R&B infused, soul infused. Then obviously the 2000s are kind of their own genre. If you think about 2000s music, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's Britney Spears, it's Nelly Furtado, it's maybe Justin Timberlake. Don't really want to mention him in the same sentence as Britney Spears though, so I'm going to strike that from the record. So that's what pop music was back then, and what pop music is now, 20 years later, is completely different. And I just think it's so interesting to follow how things change and how influences change and how one art form is influenced by another. The 2000s have made a comeback in fashion in the last few years, and I think some of the songs from that era have too. And it's just, I don't know, just connecting the dots between the different art forms and how one comes back in cycles and the other comes back in bigger cycles or smaller cycles is just all interesting. So another item on my list of what's in for 2024 is, and this might be controversial, AI songwriting. I'm sorry, because I'm a songwriter too, but as a musician, when talking about trends, you can't ignore AI. Artificial intelligence influences everything now. And even though it's kind of tricky to talk about because of the whole, it's taking away opportunities from actual human songwriters, it can also be a tool to a human songwriter. So I think it's not going to be used as here we are replacing these songwriters with these AIs, but I think it's rather more going to be, here, you songwriters who we still employ, try and use AI as a tool to help you write songs faster or write songs differently or more efficiently. Like, I think it will just be a tool. I don't think it will be able to replace people, because I don't think it's good enough for that. Because we've all seen the results of an AI trying to write a script, trying to write a song, trying to write a poem. There's nice ideas in there, but it doesn't always make complete sense. And there's just some nonsense in there that you would have to remove, that you would have to correct. So I think there will always have to be some human element to at least look over what is being produced and also have it edited. Another big problem with AI is the question of ownership. Who owns the copyright of a song that was being written by AI? Is it the machine? The machine doesn't know what to do with copyright. It doesn't benefit the machine to have copyright. Is it the inventor of the machine or the owner of the machine? But they didn't write the song or the script or the poem. They shouldn't have copyright either. So is it the person using the AI, the machine? I don't know. So I think that's a debate going on right now. If AI produces something that would have copyright, who owns that copyright? So that's another really interesting debate and an interesting question that I think will influence the future of how it's being used very heavily. So I think it's another argument for my theory of it can't replace songwriters, because just working out the legality around everything would be really difficult. I think new laws would have to be made up for that, because this is something new. It's something we haven't had before. And I think it would be better for people to just use it as a tool, but the songwriter, the human songwriter, still keeps the copyright, because while you can take inspiration from AI, you would have to change it. You would have to make it make sense, put it in a song, put it in a script. And then it was a helpful tool, but it doesn't keep copyright because it didn't make the finished product. The writer made the finished product. And the last item on my list for what's in 2024 is TikTok music. And I'm going to explain this. I'm not a big fan of the way TikTok works and the way the algorithm works. I think it's so random that effort isn't always rewarded and talent isn't always rewarded. Sometimes it's just the most random things that go viral for no obvious reason. And I don't know. I think maybe it's because I don't understand the algorithm. I don't understand the app. I think I'm not the target demographic. I'm not the generation that is a fan of TikTok, or maybe I'm just ignorant. I don't know. But I'm not the biggest fan. But I do think that TikTok music is something that will be a trend for a while, because it has been for a while already and doesn't seem to fade. And I'm going to explain what I mean by TikTok music. So TikTok music, the way I define it, the way I understand it, is music that is cinematic, that maybe has a beat that you can cut to easily. So if you have, for example, you want to post a travel TikTok with things you've seen on your travels, you would want there to be cuts so that you can insert a lot of different clips of where you've been and what you've seen. So that's why I've noticed a lot of music that goes viral on TikTok for being used behind like travel reels have quite quick cuts, like dun, 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 dun. Quick cuts so that you can get quite a few clips in there and people can get a really good impression of what things look like where you've been. Instrumental music seems to be big as well because you can put it over anything. I think that if you're a songwriter who wants to venture into that kind of thing, maybe you want to get into scoring, so like making music for film and TV and stuff like that, then writing songs for TikTok could be a really good practice because you'll see how it works and what instruments maybe work best and what mood are you going for, like exploring those kind of themes. So I think even though I don't understand TikTok and I'm not the biggest fan of TikTok, I think it could be a really good exercise for songwriters to try and write a song specifically for TikTok to be used by lots of people, solely because it will make you think about your choices. It will make you justify why you put that instrument in there. Are you going for a romantic vibe that people put over their videos of their partners, or they want to create like a mood with like a rainy afternoon and someone's holding hands and someone's walking down the street in the rain and they kiss? Like, those are the clips. What music would you put on that so that people use it for this purpose? Would you put strings? Would you put a super cute quiet piano? Would you put a very acoustic guitar that sounds like it's being played in a room somewhere? I think in general, it's just a really good idea to try and be more intentional with your songwriting, especially if it's for TikTok or Instagram. Because if you write a song for a specific mood, you're going to have to intentionally think about your choices and put things in, elements in that fit that mood. So depending on what mood you're going for, you might want to use a different instrument, a different effect, or a different arrangement. But that also applies to your songs that you might want to write for yourself, for your band, or for someone else's band, who knows. It's just a good exercise to try and be as intentional with your choices as possible. Now, obviously, as with everything, this is not a rule, because sometimes you make choices and the only reason you put like a certain instrument in a song is it just sounded good, or the reason you put in a specific lyric is just it looks good, it sounded good. So sometimes that's enough of intention to put something in. It's just a good exercise as a musician, for your brain, for your writing, and yeah, even for like just listening to other songs. Maybe you can interpret them more easily if you think about it in a way like, oh, why is that instrument there? And you start analyzing it and you start coming up with theories and stuff. It's just interesting to practice thinking that way. Now, when it comes to lyrics in Instagram music and TikTok music, I've noticed that the thing that works best is one phrase that sums up the whole feeling of the song. So one example that comes to mind is, I think I like this little life. And I think the song is called Little Life. And people basically use it to showcase the small things that they appreciate about life. Like maybe it's sitting in a meadow, picking flowers. Maybe it's walking through a forest, looking at the trees. Maybe it's spending time with your loved ones, just holding their hand and cuddling them on the sofa, or like small moments that make you feel like I have a really blessed life and I'm really happy exactly where I am. And that song is so perfect in summing that up, because that's exactly the phrase that goes through your head when you're in the moment of the video, of the reel, whatever you're posting, of the TikTok. And finding a lyric, like a phrase that exactly sums up the feeling you're going for, is gold, not only for TikTok, not only for Instagram, but for songwriting in general. Because if you want to put out a song and you want to write a chorus, for example, phrases like that are really useful, because people will immediately know what the song is about. They will remember that phrase, they can sing along, and it's just a home run. So yeah, I think that's another benefit of maybe trying to practice writing for TikTok or Instagram, because you only have very limited time to bring your point across, because the videos are so short. So practice like writing really short phrases that sum up the feeling and connect them to music that also represents that feeling. And yeah, I think trying to write for TikTok and Instagram is not a bad thing at all. It's a way of like experimenting with feelings, I think, if anything, because what we want from music that we put on our reels or on our TikTok is something that fits what we're trying to say in our TikTok or our reel. So that's kind of what you want to do with songwriting as well. You want to bring something across in your song and find the best way to describe it and represent whatever feeling that is. So it's kind of a similar thing if you think about it. TikTok is just more short form and will give you a way of practicing that exact thing, but in like 10 seconds. Like write something that's 10 seconds long. It doesn't take that long. Yeah, it's good practice. And like I said, I also think it's a trend. So if you do follow that practice, if you do play around with it a little bit, you might have a viral hit. I mean, what do I know? Nothing. I'm just a music baby. I know nothing. So this was my last point on the in list. And now we'll get to the out list. Now, obviously, the out list is more difficult to come up with because it's so subjective. Like I can say, oh, heavy metal is so out this year only because it's not my style, but someone else might have just discovered metal music and for them it's really in this year. So I've kept it very vague, but I think these are all things that we can agree on are out and we no longer should do them. So the first thing that I think is so out, you guys, is artificiality or copying someone else in style. This is something that I think everyone will go through at some point. I mean, as honest and as authentic as we all want to be, at some point or another, you're going to be like, oh, I really like that person's style and everything they do. I want to be just like them. I'm going to do the same thing. I've been there, you've maybe been there, and it's not the worst thing in the world. You are trying to find your style. You have to start somewhere. You have to start with something that you know you like, something you admire, something where you know, yes, this is the direction I want to go in, but ideally, you have to be a little bit different from whatever you're trying to go for. You have to have your own thing. It's so, so important. Copying people rarely ever works. It sounds like it might work, but I don't think it does. I think it's good to pin down your style. I normally use 3 or 4 musicians to reference when talking about my own style. I talk about Kate Bush, I talk about Lana Del Rey, Marina and the Diamonds, and Cocteau Twins. Those are kind of like my 4 go-to people to reference when people ask me what my style is, but they also change sometimes, because sometimes I'm going for a different style and then I'm like, okay, this is more that or this is more that. But what you're doing, you're just giving people an idea of, if you listen to these 4 artists, you might like my stuff too. It should in no way be, I'm exactly like this artist or I'm exactly like these 2 artists. It should just be like a suggestion, like, oh, I'm kind of in the same ballpark, but like you could even say, but the difference is I do this. So try and find something that differentiates you from whoever it is you surround yourself with style-wise. If you don't want to, or if you don't have to, you don't even have to mention any other artists. I'll try and describe myself without using any artist names. Not even gonna use a genre, I think. I'm gonna try, okay? You can try describing a mood and then kind of represent yourself that way. So my name is Delphine. I'm very dreamy. I have classical training in singing, so my voice has like a tinge of opera vibes. I am sometimes dramatic, but sometimes very atmospheric, ethereal vibes. I like to be powerful in my message, but soft in my sound. I like to use synths I think describing instruments is a good thing as well, because people know what they like sometimes. I like synths. I like kind of weird instruments. I have an omnichord. I like to use the vocoder. Every now and then I use a guitar, but only when it makes sense. And my image is a water fairy spirit from space who wants to tell you how she feels about society and the issues within it, but in a way that you can also dream too. That was a mess. Okay, that was just off the top of my head. It was obviously a bit of a mess, but I feel like I brought across what I am about in a nutshell. So you can try and describe yourself that way without trying to mention any names, because I think it eliminates that like trying to copy someone thing. If I say Kate Bush too many times, people are just going to think, oh, she's just trying to copy Kate Bush. When in reality, I know exactly which parts I take from Kate Bush or are inspirations from Kate Bush, but then other parts are maybe my own idea or maybe someone else being inspiring to me. And it's just important to know what is what. Like, I know my music is dreamy. I know which instruments I use. I know what my message is. And that is so independent from any influences, because it might be the same message as some of Kate Bush's songs, but that's not because she's inspiring me. It's just because it happens to be my message too, or it happens to be something that's important to me too. And it's like big things like caring about feminism. Like, a lot of people are going to have that message because it's an important message that hopefully a lot of people agree with. So you're gonna overlap. You're gonna overlap with people. You can't be 100% original. You can't be. You're gonna have influences, but try and stay away from mentioning them too much, thinking about them maybe too much as well, and just try and stay here with you. It's you. It's your thing. How would you describe it without mentioning any other names? The only name that's important is yours. So the next thing that I think is out this year is kind of the opposite of my weird argument in the in list. It's playing things too safe. It's thinking you have to follow a structure. You have to play by certain rules. You can't venture out too much. You want to play it safe with the instruments you use. You want to play it safe with your performance, or even if you're like an artist, like a painter, you want to play it safe with the color palette or with your brush technique, anything like that, or the things you do paint, like the actual image. Don't play it safe. You can play it safe sometimes if you want to, but it's perfectly fine and actually super interesting to step out of your comfort zone and try something crazy. Try something experimental. What's something that you always wanted to do? Did you always want to scream in a song maybe? Do it. You can edit that to be something else. Like, if you want to record a scream and then slap loads of effects on it, make it sound completely different, just venture out. Just do something new that you always wanted to try. Like, I know that there's something that you always wanted to try. The weirdest things have become popular. So why not that thing that you have been thinking about for years and years and years? Try something, do something, don't play it safe. Step out of your comfort zone a little bit. I don't want to push people too hard, but like, do what you're comfortable with, but push it just a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. Now, my next point that I think is so out in 2024, and we should leave it behind, is leaving good songs unfinished. You guys, I am part of this problem, okay? We are all part of this problem. If you feel personally attacked by this, then good, because you should. I want everybody to look at your unfinished songs and find the ones that deserve finishing. Sometimes it's really hard to tell, okay? Sometimes I know there's songs where you're like, no, I'm not going to finish that because it's not a good idea. It's not a good start. But everything has something that's good about it. Maybe the song isn't good and shouldn't be continued, but maybe there's a line in it that could be used in another song. Or maybe it's just a really good start, but it needs some editing. It needs some changes, maybe change the chords around, or maybe try the verse as a chorus, like try something else, because I'm so sure that so many of the songs that you keep in your drafts are actually really good and deserve to be worked on and deserve to be heard. I want to hear more songs. I know this is a common issue that musicians will just not finish their bloody songs because they're too scared that they're not good in the end and that all that effort was for nothing. But here's the thing. You are not going to get better if you don't learn from your mistakes, if you don't recognize what is a mistake. And if you finish a song and after you finished it, you can say, actually, this is the problem in the song. This is why I don't like it. This is why it's not good. Then you know what it is that you have to change. But you don't know that if you leave stuff in the drafts, if you don't finish things, if you just throw them away because you're not sure about them, which you can do. Like, I'm really not trying to tell you what to do, but like, I wholly recommend looking back at it because your work is so good because it came from you. It's original, probably, and it deserves being worked at a little bit. And now my last one is similar to finish your songs, but this is also very out, and I want people to leave this one behind as well. It's something that will help you in so many ways. I have developed as a person, not just as a musician, as a person, because I started doing this. So the last thing that is out in 2024 is not playing gigs. Guys, you gotta play gigs. This is such a good way of showcasing your art, showcasing your talent, and gaining confidence. If you're not confident, it's really, really hard to make that first step. I completely understand that. I've been there as well. I see it every week at the open mics that I host. People are so nervous. They are so scared to go on stage and show their own songs. But trust me, bring your friends, make friends with the open mic host, me. I will help you. I will encourage you. I will get you through the nerves. I've also been there. I know what you feel. And most people will know what you feel. Bring your friends. Tell them, please force me to go on stage today. And I want to play one song. You don't even have to do a whole show. Do one song that is yours. Maybe do one that you're really proud of, that you secretly kind of want to show people, but you're just too scared. Get up on that stage. Play that song. It will be over before you know it. And then after that, you might even want to stay on stage. It's literally just the going there that is the scariest bit. Once you're there, once you're on stage, you can get through it. You can play through it. It's just you and your song. And ignore the pub, ignore the people, ignore the venue. It's just you and your song. Put it out there. Put it in the universe. And I promise you, you will be rewarded. Either by the audience in loads of compliments because they love your stuff and they love how you performed, or in growing confidence. This is such a good way of becoming more confident because you really have to jump over your shadow there. It's really hard. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. It's really not, especially if you're nervous already. If you're a confident person, easy. You can do it. I have full faith in you. You're not my worry at all. But if you're an insecure person, I know how hard this is. Okay, this is not an easy thing to do. So I feel a little bit bad about putting it on the out list, but I just wanted to talk about this because it helped me so much. And I see people every week. There's this one girl who comes quite often recently, actually. And every time she comes into the pub, I know she's amazing. I love her songs. I love her performances. And I always ask her, do you want to perform today? She always says no. She's always like, no, not today. I'm like not in the mood. I'm too scared. I'm too nervous. I'm something, which is absolutely fine because I don't push people. But if I have a feeling that they do kind of want to perform, sometimes you can tell. Sometimes you can be like, I think I could help this person like get on there. Then I just sit with them for a bit, ask them about their music. If I have seen them before, give them loads of compliments, of course, like build up their confidence a little bit. And then 9 times out of 10, they actually get the taste for performing. And they're like, do you know what? Actually, I do want to perform. And this girl specifically as well, every time she comes in, says she doesn't want to perform. Every time she then does perform, at least the times that I've seen. And every time it's so good. She is so beautiful on stage. Her songs are they're very quiet, but they just land. Like, people love them. Her voice sounds incredible. And every time I'm just so proud of her. And I'm so happy that she ended up like jumping over her shadow and doing this. And that could be you as well. Like, get over your fear of performing one step at a time. Take your time with this, okay? Because it can also be really scary if you get no response from the audience. This does happen. This happened to me a lot of times, but it's also a good exercise. Like, if no one claps, if no one looks up, and you still have to play the song, then it's literally just you and your music. In a way, sometimes I like when people aren't listening, because I'm just like, oh, that's okay. Now I can try things out. People aren't listening anyway, so if I make a mistake, it doesn't matter. So, but it is also a hard thing to get through, because if no one's listening, you kind of start thinking, why am I even up here? No one likes me. Like, people aren't into this. They don't like what I'm doing. I must be horrible at this. That's not true. Trust me. That is so not true. I could perform exactly the same set, exactly the same way. Someday people are just more chatty. They're not there for music. They don't want to listen. Other times people are really into what you're doing. And it just depends on the day. It depends on the crowd. It's not you 99% of the time. It could just be the circumstances. But trust me when I say that it's so worth jumping over your shadow every once in a while and getting up on stage. It's really fun. And at a lot of open mics, you actually get a free drink when you perform. So if that's in any way an encouragement, then there you go. Have this as a little piece of encouragement. You might get a free drink. And you'll meet people as well, because there's other musicians there too. And you can show them your stuff. Like, you can bond with other people who maybe came on their own. If you're not coming with friends, make friends. There's musicians there. They're probably into the same thing as you. So go on stage and show your stuff. And I just would like to clarify that by show your stuff, I mean show your music, show your art. I don't mean anything other than that, even though it sounds that way. So this was it. This was my in and out list for 2024 in music and a little bit of art as well. Did you agree with any of what I said, especially like the in list? I feel like was very much trends that I've noticed, and the out list is more like general advice, things that I think we should stop doing. The gist of the list is try something new, believe in yourself, experiment, be bold. Out, playing things safe, copying others, not showcasing music. So that was just a quick summary of what we just talked about. If you want to talk about any of the topics that I just babbled on about, please reach out. I love to have a discussion about every single one that I've mentioned, because they are so subjective, a lot of them. I do want to hear other opinions. I want to hear your opinions. Let's talk about this, because this is all I think about all day long is music and genres and songwriting and how other people feel about it. And I just want to find the community who also really cares about these topics, so that we can all connect and we can all talk about all this kind of weird nerd stuff. Tell me if you read any of the books I mentioned. That'd be interesting to hear. Or if you have any recommendations for weird books, actually, that'd be great. Thank you. And please come back to the next episode of Music Baby, the podcast with me, Delphine, the OG Music Baby. If you're a Music Baby too, please join the revolution. And yeah, come back next week for another episode. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.